All right, guys. Welcome to Co-Founders Connect, where we connect co-founders with resources in the community and awesome entrepreneurs to help them out. So in this episode, we're going to be talking to Josh. Your last name, is it Fechter or Fechter? That's Fechter, Josh Fechter, and Houston. Your last name is awesome for Golden, right?
Golden.
Yeah, very easy. It's a Golden last name. And we're going to talk about their story, how they started BAMF.Media. These guys are rock stars. I've been on their Facebook group for quite a while. If there's one thing that Josh knows how to do, it's content marketing. I've read a lot of his stuff. So we're going to get into them and how they started out. So tell me, guys, what is the story? What are the hidden gems that you guys hide when you tell people about the up and coming of this growth hacking agency?
So I'll start with Josh.
Yeah.
I'll start with the community, and then I'll let Houston lead into how the agency part started, because the community started a while before the agency. Houston, I would say, is a lot more business-minded than I am. I'm very artistic. Like, I love writing. I consider myself a writer above everything else. The community started actually as 10 growth hackers. It was called San Francisco Growth Hackers.
Oh, okay.
This is a testament to how good we are at growth hacking. Content. The only content allowed is guides on how to growth hack the internet. And it turned out that I was the only person that was actually going to produce this. Everybody else just didn't do it. And so I just did this almost every day for around a couple months and used some of the growth hacks I was writing about to actually drive traffic to the group. So
that's fantastic.
Cold emailing like 50,000 people with really relevant emails, or just doing LinkedIn messaging at scale, very specific people, like very specific founders and marketers to grow in the early days, and then really let the content just propel it from there through word of mouth. Then started doing a lot of in-person events in San Francisco, and then as soon as I want to expand to LA, Houston hit me up and he's like, dude, I want to hold the first BAMF LA event. And I was like, who is this guy? I just know he's in a Facebook group, and he posted a guide about chatbots. So I was like, well, he did post a guide, so I trust him.
My strategy worked. I literally posted the guide like a day before I reached out to him.
That's perfect timing. I'm gonna write a guide right after this. Awesome, guys. Great.
Yeah. So basically, the San Francisco Growth Hackers group got started. I was one of the first 100 members in that group, even though I didn't live in San Francisco. But I remember joining it because I was trying to join every other growth hacking group I could find.
Nice.
Most of them all were complete crap and full of spammers, or just like no one was putting out any actual content other than spam. But obviously, I was seeing this guy Josh pop up every single day in my feed. Like, this is crazy. He's giving away all of our secrets. What are you doing, man? Like, there's gonna be no more growth hacking when all this is mainstream. And shot him a message like, hey man, you probably shouldn't tell everyone about this growth hacks. And then I eventually came around and was like, wow, this is a total paradigm shift in like the entire way people look at growth hacking. These aren't just secrets. These are things that like we want to provide to everybody and help them scale their business, right? So as Josh mentioned, I wanted to host the first BAMF LA meetup. So I wrote a guide on chatbots and then reached out to him. And I don't know, within like a week, he was down here in LA, and we had a pretty small little meetup at a Chinese restaurant here in Venice. And
interesting.
Yeah, it was really awesome. It was maybe like 15 people just here in the Venice tech kind of growth hacking community here. And yeah, that was, at the time I was working at another agency and had kind of hit a wall there where I was like managing 16 clients, and I was a head of growth strategy there. And really, Josh had actually just strategically left his last job as well. And I was like, whoa, perfect timing. Josh doesn't know what he's going to be doing next week. And why don't we both quit our jobs right now and start an agency? We'll call it BAMF.Media. And oh man.
You guys have done a phenomenal job with your group, right? Now I see a lot of content on there, a lot of people engaging, So when did that transition come from San Francisco Growth Hackers, right? That's what it was originally called, to when you were like, okay, I'm going to call this BAMF. When did it really you take it to the next level as a growth hacking agency? You guys are very unique because you started with the community first, I think, which is huge. versus most business owners, they have the product or business first and then they build the community. So how did you go about building that community? Was the brand, did you think about that? Like, hey, I'm going to build a brand first, or did it just naturally come together?
Yeah, my intention was never to start a business. And I think that's why it thrived when we did start a business. My intention was always very pure, to just help founders out and teach them the best growth hacks on the internet. And then it changed to badass marketers and founders actually as a joke. I was growth evangelist for Autopilot, which is one of the fastest growing SaaS companies. And I was like, what can make marketers and founders just sound better, right? And then I threw the word badass in front of it. And I was like, oh, wow, it's hilarious because that also stands for BAMF.
Yeah.
And like just a couple seconds, I just changed the name just like that, just because I thought it was funny. And then the next thing I said was, this would be hilarious if it turned into a company one day.
That is funny. That is, I mean, it's a great name too. And when you change your Facebook group to BAMF, then did everybody just come flocking in? What really spiked up, the membership and the community? Like, what really made that big difference for you guys?
I would say consistency, because most of the people that come to the community now are just purely through referrals. People just knew us as the best Facebook group. That's why we got invited to the Facebook Community Summit by Mark Zuckerberg and his team, which was really cool to basically be part of that. There's around 100 groups that got to hear and change your mission.
Wow.
And no other group just has consistency that we do in terms of posting every day and trying to post something that's really good every day.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah. And now that you've got that community, I think it puts you in a fantastic position as a growth hacking agency where you can go in, right? You've written all these guides. So I've had that, the same thing where we're writing blog posts on our website. And sometimes, my co-founders or me, I'm like, hey, should we really give that piece of content away? Right? Maybe this is, the golden nugget. What is your mindset on that? And maybe if it's changed, or, what are your views on agencies and companies just giving out all their secrets?
So I would say Houston and I definitely have different views on this, to say the least.
Awesome. Okay.
So,
love it.
Very abundant mindset. It was after reading this book called The Organized Mind. And
Organized Mind. Okay.
If you put out material into the world, whether it's in written form, video form, it removes space from your head, right? You're no longer thinking about it. And then it gives you creativity to come up with new things. But
love it.
You're taking a risk, right? Because you don't know what that new thing is. You just have to hope that it's better, right? So if I put out a growth hack out to the world, the chances of me coming out with a new one increase exponentially, right? Because now I have space. That's very creative. Now, Houston, on the other hand, and especially running an agency, you can get worried because some of these can be saying, hey, here's exactly how we do our service for you, right? And then people say like, well, why are we going to pay you if you've written a whole guide on it and we can just follow this guy?
Yeah, it's definitely like, I've really come around. Like, as I mentioned, one of the first things I messaged Josh before he even knew who I was like, stop giving away all of my secrets. They obviously weren't my secrets because he already knew them. Some other people that were growth hackers knew about them as well. And I've definitely like switched my mindset to be a lot more towards being transparent, having that abundant mindset. And, from an agency's perspective, we do want to be a little bit more careful than we used to be potentially we are creating a ton of, internal guides for how we operate our business and how we operate our services. And, whenever we come up with a guide that's for our internal operations, I'm not really like, cool, an awesome new guide, let's give it away for free to everybody. Whereas Josh probably would be like, oh, this guide is awesome, let's give it away, right? And then I think at the same token, you're like, if you give away how you do the service in such a way where you show how much of an expert you are in it, then the clients are going to see that and they're going to be like, well, these guys clearly know how to do it. I can either follow this, 30-page guide, or I can just hire them to do it. So at the same time, we're like, the percentage of people that are actually going to follow through with it is very small, like maybe 1%. And then the rest of the 99% are just going to want to reach out to us to have us do that for them.
That is a fantastic point. That the same thing happened to my, agency. We just do SEO, you guys give away the best growth hacking tips. I would teach people, I would do tutorials, right? And I would charge like a small fee, right? for the smaller people that can't afford my services. But then the more you teach them, the more of an expert you become. And then, they'll tell all their friends about you, right? They know you as the expert. So if they have any other questions or like a new viewpoint, they'll tell that to you. And then also they became clients of mine, right? Whoever I've taught, because right. It's like being a fitness trainer, right? You give somebody, an exercise regimen. It's really hard for them to follow it. Very few people have that level of execution time, especially I take it now you guys are probably moving up the pipeline with your clients for your growth hacking agency, right? You're dealing with bigger and bigger companies.
Every week, every month the clients get bigger, our team is getting bigger, our services are getting more refined. It's really been amazing to see the progress from just being us two, Josh being the ultimate hype man, writing all day on LinkedIn, generating tons and tons of leads, and then, closing those deals. And literally there was a point where it was just us two for the first 3 months of the agency. And I was having to do strategy, email, social media ads, PR, B2B hacking. I was doing everything myself. And then, one by one, we start to hire people to fill in everything. And, now we're at almost 30 people, and it's really remarkable.
That leads us right into the next question, right? I'm looking at the list we've got. And how do you guys go about, so we've got a team of 9 here, right? I'm not at 30 yet. So I'd love to hear your wisdom and your nuggets, that you've learned about how to hire a high performing team, right? What do you guys look for?
Yeah, so I want to say one more point around giving that content away for free before we move on to like how we hire the most badass people. Mm-hmm. What's really different about BAMF is that until literally this week or maybe the end of last week, we never ran a single ad. We never paid for any search engine marketing or social media ads. All of that content that we're giving away for free created an insane amount of word of mouth. So the community, the books that we release for free, all of that allowed us to not have to spend $1 on advertising our business, which would have been more like throwing money away at that point. We've been generating all of these leads just from the content that Josh does on LinkedIn, as well as the books and the content that we give out for free in the group. So as far as like if you are like an early stage agency or an early stage founder and it's not really scalable or within your budget to be, paying $100 or $200 a lead and trying to go the paid route to growth, then just using your knowledge, using your expertise to like give away valuable content for free is going to be definitely a much more scalable path like early on. And that's what we did. And that was like what I would say is like our ultimate growth hack was the content and giving away so much value for free.
Yeah, that is a great growth hack. I think a lot of people overlook. So sure. Let's there's going to be, I'm sure there's small starting up co-founders that have to roll up their sleeves, and then there's going to be some bigger companies watching this as well. Tell us more then, before we go into how you guys hire, what makes your marketing unique? How has it improved over time, and what separates you guys as a growth hacking agency? What is a growth hacking agency? I think we have some clients that especially the really big ones, they're not even in the market at all in terms of they don't know anything. We have to educate a lot of them. So tell us more about that.
I think there's 2 parts. I'll let Houston talk more about the service side, but I'll talk more about the people side. So first, if you don't have the right people who have a growth hacking background, then it's very hard to even have the services in the first place, right? So a lot of people that we brought on early on, we're growth hackers. We define them in our group as people who are posting lots of new guides, and we're always staying on the cutting edge of technology and saying, wow, look at how this interacts with this. And now I just create this guide. Now everybody can do it, right? And bringing on those people early on made a huge difference, especially with some of the growth hacking services that we had in place that were just okay. When they came on board, they became great, right? Because they came on board and said, hey, I'd love to add, my nuggets of wisdom, which is using these tools and these processes to make your growth hacking even better. And then those services were such as B2B growth hacking, PR hacking. Houston can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so definitely what makes us a growth hacking agency and how we differentiate ourselves from a traditional marketing agency is that X factor, right? We offer services that they don't offer. We're still the best and the most badass at all the stuff that they do, like social media advertising and email and website design, and the stuff that people expect from a digital agency, but we also do stuff that they don't, like advanced chatbots. We make some of the most advanced chatbots that I think have ever been made to this point, as far as like Facebook Messenger, with hundreds and hundreds of different sequences. And we use marketing automation and artificial intelligence platforms to help inform the data that drives our marketing. We offer PR hacking. So as far as like our PR service, we generate insane results. We get all of our clients in PR top placements, and the average placement for a PR placement that we get is, you know, a website that has 40 million average monthly visitors. So that's just the average. We're also really good at getting the niche PR placements as well. But our approach is not like a traditional PR agency that's based on like existing relationships, where the PR agency will reach out to the people in the press and then see if they're interested in writing about the client, and that agency kind of owns the relationship, right? We actually create relationships at scale using technology, using advanced personalization techniques, and using data to find everyone that's writing about a certain topic in the last month or something like that. And I think that our use of technology, our use of non-traditional strategies, and our creative sort of like outside of the box approach is definitely what gives us the X factor, makes us more of a growth hacking agency. We're also just like, we're not afraid to break the rules. If a client comes to us, they often are wanting something completely different. They're wanting, you know, an agency that's not afraid to have the word badass in their name, right? So they often come to us looking for something that they know they're not going to get anywhere else.
On the edge, yep. That sounds great. So you guys also obviously creating this community, it easily puts you at the forefront. You know, I've read you know, some of the guides and some of the posts on this Facebook group. They're very insightful. So that constantly gives you guys at the front of the stream. So speaking, you know, keeping on the edge and making sure you know, you're always up to standards. So how do you make sure all your employees are up to standards? How do you make sure your team, right, is in tip-top shape? Let's get on that side, right? What makes your team so special?
So one of the things that we decided to do off the bat is not to hire any junior people. Everybody we hired was very experienced. You're talking about people with like at least 5+ years of marketing experience. And we hired so far only one junior person, and he helps us with some sales processes, right? So it's not really like direct client work. And I think that was hugely beneficial to us in terms of ramp up time. But granted, we're taking a bigger risk because we're paying bigger salaries right off the bat, right? So, and when you're a new agency, that can be very difficult if your contracts are not 12 months long, right? If they're not a year long, let's say they're only 3 months, and you're paying bigger salaries, then it puts you in this unique position where you have to show up, you're going to shut down, right? So we knew that, and it was just basically having enough trust in ourselves and the people that we were hiring in terms of their experience to just show up every day, that our clients were going to stick with us and we would scale.
Yeah, I'd say like a couple of points on hiring. You know, like we started with the community, and more than 30-40% of the people that we've hired have actually come straight from the community. And huge advantage when we have already curated, you know, a group of all of the top growth hackers. And we aren't looking for people with, you know, the most traditional experience. You know, someone who is senior in chatbots maybe have only been doing chatbots for 1.5 years, 2 years, because Facebook Messenger platform has only been around for 2 years. So a senior chatbot person is going to be pretty young. And I do think that as far as what we look for in an awesome candidate for BAMF is someone who has an extreme bias towards execution. We don't want people who are sort of pie in the sky. They like to come up with ideas. We like people who are like extreme executors. That's what, when people come to us, that's what they want. They don't want us to just present them with a plan. They want us to present them with a plan and tell them how we've already done it.
Yeah, something that already works. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I think, you know, the community, coming back to that community, I think that gives you such a huge advantage because that's all anything really is, right? If you take a look at any big company, they've successfully built a community out there. So what would some of your tips be out there, for companies or people here that are trying to build communities around themselves, right? Because, in the marketing industry, that's kind of what my thought process when it comes to marketing. It's the best people, they build communities around things. And once you've successfully built that sustaining community, right, it just takes care of itself, right? And that's what everybody's trying to do. So what would some of your tips be?
So one of the funniest things I see is that we get asked all the time, can you build our community for us, right? And we're going to appoint a community manager. And I'm like, that's not how it works. How it works is you have the leader of your company is the person who shows up in the community. And you see this with the best communities, especially if you look at Facebook groups, it's always the founder, right? It's never his assistant. So when they say, oh, she's my assistant, I just laugh. I'm like, it's not how it works, right? It starts with the person who has the most passion about it. And if the person has a lot of passion, they're willing to show up, and they're not looking at it on a timeline or in a business sense. So they're not saying, I'm going to do this for 2 years, make a lot of money. Then that's when a community becomes, has, I would say, like unique authenticity where it can grow very quickly because people start trusting the leader, they start trusting the content, and they don't feel like they're going to get spammed because the founder of that community has no reason to spam them, right? He knows he wants the community to be there for the next 20 years. So to him, having a short little win of posting something that has direct sales in it in the beginning when starting it makes no sense whatsoever. So it's one of the reasons that people really liked our communities. We didn't sell in the community for almost a year and a half after it started. Wow. And not one post that asked people to pay us money. And I only asked for money once I quit my job at Autopilot and we had to bootstrap our agency. And I was like, well, we're in a tough place, let's rock and roll.
Yeah. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. And I think another point that I want to make is a distinction as well. So Josh started the community with no, goal of building a business. And it was really all about the people and all about, actually creating that ethos and that ecosystem around the content. But after you actually create a business, you need to make sure that ethos is also present in the culture of the company. So Josh is building this giant, community that's a global community. And my personal passion has been, how do we actually build the community and this sense of culture like within the walls of this office? So that's something that definitely, if you're trying to build a community for your business, definitely listen to Josh when he says you don't want to be selling them anything. You want to just be providing value, but also you want to look internally first. Like, what do you align with? What does your team align with? What is everyone that's in the room going to be passionate about so that everyone can be involved in the greater community and that it perfectly reflects, your mission as a business and as a company.
Great. I mean, that's great advice, guys. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I think about myself as I'm building this company. Did you guys create like a list of values that you wanted to be known for about first? Did you, first get to 5 employees, then said, okay, guys, we're going to have like a group activity together? Especially for these companies that are looking to do it internally and externally. That's something you pointed out, I think, that I haven't personally thought about a lot either, right? You got to do it on both sides, not just your clients, but also internally. So tell me about the internal side. Did you guys come together for day one or?
When we first got the office, we had a giant whiteboard with this whole space, and we just started writing down. We're like, all right, we got to do this. We just started writing down these, words and phrases and things. And some of them have definitely stuck around, and some of them I can't remember at all. I have a picture of it somewhere. But yeah, kill them with kindness is one of the things on the agency side.
Wow.
We're always going to deal with difficult clients and frustrating situations, and we just want to always be like a positive person in the client side, even when they're going through rough times. Like maybe their business isn't making the type of revenue they want, or they're just having a bad day and they're trying to take it out on us. We just want to like always reinforce that positivity and always like kill them with kindness, as we like to say internally.
Beautiful.
Then we also have the relentless resourcefulness, which is kind of the get shit done mentality, that extreme execution mentality. We don't want people who are going to be like, well, it didn't get done because I was waiting for someone to do this, or I was waiting to, for you to teach me how to do it, right? We want people who are going to, if they have a problem they don't know how to solve, they're going to be resourceful and figuring it out on their own, right? So those are definitely two of the most important values that like I personally preach a lot. It's like no excuses, relentless resourcefulness, kill them with kindness.
What about you, Josh? Is that something you talked to Houston about together, about these two values, or are there any you want to add on? Or?
Yeah, so kill them with kindness is actually meant for me because I had a tendency to get a little bit angry.
Oh, really? I would never guess that. Okay.
And I'm a very nice person, but some people, like especially early on when you're starting an agency, like I was very used to people, I guess, understanding my experience, right? But all of a sudden you have a company and you're starting with day one and you're dealing with clients that don't know anything about you, right? And I just wasn't used to that. I was like, man, I'm used to everybody knowing who I am and understanding my experience. And some of the stuff they would ask me and tell me to do, it just made me want to, rip my brains out. So, so Houston invented the role, and I was like, okay, well, stay calm.
Yeah. it started as a burn no bridges, and then I decided kill them with kindness is like a more proactive way of going about that instead of burn no bridges. But yeah, I mean, everyone has like rough days, and everyone, we are obsessed with what we do, and we want to be the absolute best at it. And when a client or a prospect doesn't see the quality, or they're like just trying to deny the quality, it's pretty easy to get worked up. But there was one time in particular where this client was trying to get out of their service agreement, and we had given them all these discounts up front because they signed a longer term agreement, and I was just like, man, we gave you everything, and then you're trying to get out of the contract. And he started yelling at me, and I was like, not happy or having it, because it was kind of a huge load of BS that he was throwing at us. The results were amazing. We were more than over-delivered on everything. But then Josh was like, man, I've never seen you like that, dude. Like, remember what you told me, dude?
Yeah, I put it back on him.
And then I think ever since that moment where Josh was like, dude, remember, man, kill him with kindness, I was like, shit, that was supposed to be what I say to you. And like ever since then, I'm like, I always like put my emotions in the back seat, and like it's really all about empathy and just like understanding, where they're coming from. And if they're taking it out on you, it's probably not because of the work that you're doing. It's probably because of something else. And, there's been, times since then where if there's ever a question around like, maybe we missed a deliverable because of X, Y, Z, and the client's not happy with it, I will be happy to give them an extra month of that service just to prove that we're going to over-deliver at every step.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that sounds very powerful for your company. So yeah, and then the other value was resourcefulness, right? It was, what was it? Resourceful, or what was it? Relentless resourcefulness. Yeah, I was like, there's RR in there. So relentless resourcefulness. So tell us about that, right? Because I think especially as a growth hacking agency, right, versus like a traditional, advertising company or whatever, right? A growth hacker is very resourceful, very cost effective, cost efficient. So could you maybe talk about maybe some campaigns you guys have done, right, where a traditional company, a billboard would not be able to accomplish those goals? And then number two, before that, you talk about how you got to the relentless resourcefulness. Yeah, I don't know why. tongue twister for me. But yeah, how you got to that value?
Yeah, I mean, relentless to me just means like you literally will not give up until you find the solution. Like someone who's relentless is a maniac, man. Like someone, it's like you could use the word relentless in a negative sense for sure, where it's like, you know, people who are relentless, maybe they should just give up on something. But like if you're relentlessly pursuing a girlfriend or something like that, maybe not the best use of the word relentless there. But like a relentless resourcefulness is like kind of like where there's a will, there's a way. And if you want to get something done, you're going to find a way to do it.
Mm-hmm. A great example would be we look for people that have a very they take responsibility for their actions, right? And when we go to them during team meetings, they don't say, hey, Melanie, Victor, or whoever it is, didn't help me out with this, so that's why I didn't get it on time. Like, they're not the person who blames others, right? They're saying, hey, like, I figured out a way to do it on my own to meet the client's expectations. It might not have been the most perfect thing that they wanted, but I got it done, right?
Wow, yeah.
And people with those type of mindsets. And whenever we hear somebody in our office blame somebody else, we always take them aside. It's our biggest pet peeve. Or say, just make an excuse on something they feel like is out of their control. We look for someone that has a very strong, what they say, internal locus of control that says, hey, I am responsible for my actions, I'm responsible for my clients, and I'm going to meet those deadlines like one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a fantastic, both of those values would sound fantastic for a growth hacking digital agency, growth hacking agency. So, obviously you guys don't do any ads on the sides of buses, I take it, right? Or any billboards. Can you go more into more of the specific types of services, right? You mentioned PR jacking. Can you go more into those services and kind of what clients get out of that?
Yeah, you want to talk about PR hacking with Go Crew? I think that's a great
or whatever services you guys have. Maybe you have a new one or one you used to have.
So we had this client and still have them. They're called Go Crew, one of the largest women organizations. And they came to us wanting to launch, I believe it was in 20 cities in the US. Mm-hmm. And they're backed by Facebook and LinkedIn. And they didn't have a business model when they came to us. Mm-hmm. And we had to basically build out their entire business model.
Wow.
I had a lot of experience doing hyperlocal marketing, which helped. So we knew what their funnels would look like. We knew what the ads would look like. The PR side was definitely playing up to people who are very strong supporters of women. And during the time, there's also the Me Too campaign going on. So playing that angle a little bit and understanding like, hey, what can pop? What is trending right now, right? And then being able to reach out to people at scale that are relevant. And I think the hard part about PR hacking in general is that it's so time consuming finding journalists, emails, scraping data, that even though a lot of people can reach out to people at scale, just the amount of time it takes them, you're talking about like 2 months later, and then they're like, it's not even worth it, right? So how do you make those processes so efficient to a point where maybe it takes you a day to set everything up?
Yeah.
And being able to do that for clients. So doing the same thing, it takes people 2 months to do and do it in a day or two. And Houston can talk a little bit about the results as he led strategy in the campaign. So
Girl Crew was a great case study for our PR hacking service. On our very first email blast, we emailed. Our emails are extremely personalized, right? So we will find bloggers that are writing about women in tech. So that was like our first category, and they will personalize the email to the point it'll be like, "Hey Julia, I loved your blog post on Refinery 29 about women in tech and how 2018 is going to be the year they shattered the glass ceiling, blah blah blah." And I thought it was an amazing post and wanted to reach out because we're also trying to do the same thing, right? So we always lead with something where we're kind of flattering the journalist. We're letting them know that we enjoyed their content, that we actually read their content. And we always start with that before we are like, the next thing would be, you know, I'm the CEO of Girl Crew, and I would love to like talk with you about, you know, these 4 or 5 interesting stories. And then one of the really cool things that the CEO of Girl Crew did was she switched her gender on Tinder so that she could match with girls that were just looking for other girls to be friends, and would just send them messages saying, hey, looking for friends, just download this app. And that's how they got their first couple thousand users, was literally their founder just kind of growth hacking Tinder by switching her gender so that she could make friends and find some people to go out for drinks with. And it's a pretty hilarious story. And when we reach out to people in the press, we always want to have something that's really unique, that really stands out. And it's never anything that's like, you know, Girl Crew recently raised $200,000 from X investor, press release. No one cares. No one cares about press releases. They don't help you build relationships with anyone. They don't drive much traffic. They're not interesting. So instead of leading with, you know, the kind of content that you would see in a traditional press release, we always talk with our client, talk with our founder to like reverse engineer some really interesting stories from their experience along the way. And that's definitely something that we don't see from traditional PR agencies. I can tell you the ultimate growth hack that we did for a PR hack. And
sure,
yeah. I don't know how many people are going to listen to this podcast, because
we have our Co-Founders Connect meetup group has 3,500 members. Our Facebook group has 1,000, and
Well, this is, you know, top secret knowledge, except for the people listening to this podcast and that might read the transcript. But yeah, about a year ago, I started doing the PR hacking service for some of my side clients, and one of them was a musician and wanted to get 1 million plays on her song on SoundCloud. She wasn't like a bad musician or anything, but there was no way she was going to get 1 million plays. It was actually a pretty good song. But without much marketing dollars or anything, you know, how are we going to get 1 million plays? And I was like, I think we can figure out a way. So I thought of what is the most viral thing on the internet. And at the time, most viral thing on the internet was Trump. And then the other most viral thing on the internet that has always been viral on the internet is cats. People love cats. So I engineered a website that combined Trump and cats. And basically, it was a website that had these giant kitten paws that let you scratch Trump's face with giant kitten paws. And the more you scratched him, the more scratched up he got, and you could beat the game. And then once you beat the game, you have defeated Trump with the power of kittens, and then it asks you to share your friends. But the whole point of it wasn't to just have a shit ton of fun doing it, which it was. The whole point was to get the 1 million plays, right? So we just created a little JavaScript that automatically played the girl's song in the background so that every person that hit the site got a play on the song. And then we took it a step further, and this is where we're definitely more on the growth hacking side of things. We pitched it to the press as a 17-year-old girl who had made this in a coding boot camp as a fun project, who had gotten a cease and desist letter from Trump to take the site down. And so we made all these fake emails and started emailing people in the press saying that we're Lucy and that Trump sent us a cease and desist and we didn't know what to do, and that we really needed their help to get this story, get some coverage so that we could hire a lawyer and all this stuff. And literally we woke up the next morning and we had gotten emails from The Hollywood Reporter, The Observer, literally Jimmy Kimmel's studio reached out to us. Fox News, CNN, everything, every single place that we had emailed had gotten back to us saying that they wanted an exclusive on the story.
Wow.
So we basically gave the exclusive to all of them. And then they all posted it thinking they had the exclusive on it.
That's impressive. That's awesome.
Next thing you knew, we had driven about 10 million views to this website it crashed when it first got like 500K visitors within like an hour. And then I redirected the website to the Wayback Machine, which is like the Internet Archive.
Yep.
And I actually crashed the Wayback Machine. So I literally crashed the entire backup of the internet. So when we say we like to break the internet, like that's kind of one of our catchphrases, like, boom, let's do it. We'll break the internet. Like, we actually broke the internet with this campaign. So
that's awesome. That's fantastic.
That's
cool, guys. Well, sadly, we've got about 10 minutes left, so I've just got a couple questions here. So you talked about, what constitutes a growth agency, what makes you, a unique agency. What's the biggest misconception clients have about you and your field that you just like wish they knew from day one? You're like, man, I wish, like you just read all this stuff so we wouldn't, have to talk about this. What are those misconceptions?
So one is that growth hacking is magic and that happens overnight.
Yeah.
Growth hacking is really just a set of intricate processes that are built on top of each other. And you're talking about maybe like a 30-page guide of processes, right? So it's not magic. It's just something that's very complex that's been simplified as much as possible to move faster, right? And so when they come to us, they're like, well, we want results day one. And we're like, it doesn't really work that way. There's still a lot that we have to go through, and it's going to take a little bit of time. And the fact that people want results immediately tends to also show that they're not going to be the best client. So one of the things that we've also seen is that people who come in and say, we just want execution. We don't even want you to understand our business first, just execute, tend to also be very bad clients that we don't take on. We don't want to start with any company before we fully understand their business, their target demographic, their analytics. Otherwise, it's just a complete mess. And them just saying, go execute, then saying, hey, how come all this messaging is off? And I'm like, well, you didn't even give us time to actually understand who your target customer is, right? Or even dive into your analytics. Otherwise, we would know. So I would say those two things especially is one is you can't execute immediately. That is just entirely false. And two is growth hacking is not magic. It's just very complicated marketing using a lot of cutting edge technology.
Yeah, I would completely agree. It takes time, and clients that come in that want results immediately always are going to most likely be like misaligned from like a long-term standpoint. I couldn't say it better than what Josh just said. Growth hacking is not necessarily magic. It could look like magic when you see the results, but those results don't usually happen overnight.
Yeah, I agreed, right? It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of research and experience. Great. I mean, that was a great tip. So next we got our, what three, on the opposite side, what 3 tips would you guys give for co-founders, because the Co-Founders Connect podcast, to better connect to their partners, prospects, or the public?
I would say definitely you can't find a co-founder just going to, like cofoundersmeet.com or something like that, right? And to be honest, finding the right co-founder is the hardest thing in business.
Agreed.
If you don't get it right, your business is doomed from day one. I've gone through numerous startups that have failed. Josh has gone through numerous startups that have failed. And to be honest, we took a risk on each other. We had met for
like 3 hours.
a few hours, and we're like, this is going to work. This is going to be awesome. We both put our and, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that to everybody, but we had enough experience and we had enough of a connection where from the get-go, we could see the value that each of us would bring to the table. And I think that's so important in co-founders that like each of you brings something very, very different to the table, right? So Josh basically brought a huge audience and a community and the ability to be a content machine. And I was like bringing all the processes and the services and the ability to execute on the agency side. And I think having that really clear power balance where we both are bringing everything we can to the table without holding each other back in any way has been like the absolute key to our success. And I would say if you have any hesitation about someone that you're considering to make a co-founder, you're most likely making a bad mistake if you're gonna go with that. So
that's a fantastic tip. Feel bad for you, Josh. You got to top that.
I mean,
love you, bro.
I think it was sort of funny. So I remember I think I was in Houston's apartment, and he was showing me some of the stuff he was working on. And all I could think about was like, wow, this guy's a genius. And he just knew so many things that I had no idea about. A lot of it came to just setting up proposals, services, growth hacking, data, especially data. And there was a lot of stuff that I always looked at as like the missing piece to everything I did. I was like, wow, this is just everything I need, but I'm never going to do that, right? And I just knew that. And then Houston was like looking at some of the stuff I did. He's like, I had sort of the same feeling, right? And that's when the magic really happens. You're like, it just clicks. I think it was also cool. We were working on very similar projects, just in different realms. Like I was working on Chrome extensions. He was working on Chrome extensions that both had to do with growth hacking. And it's very unique to find people who are doing that. I know maybe like 5 people who are working on growth hacking Chrome extensions right now. They live all across the world, right? So to find somebody who lives, just in one city over from me that's doing that is already a huge positive signal right there. Granted, and someone who had past startup experience, especially early startup experience, and had failed. Like I have been through so many startups that failed that I wanted someone who understood what it was like and understood what taking a risk meant, right? And could deal with a very high pressured situation where what happens if your largest client churns and you have to, hit payroll, right? So being very cognizant of that and not letting that get you at the end of the day and bog you down. But saying, hey, like, we're going to crush it. We'll figure it out because that's what we do. And being able to find somebody with that mentality is very, very rare.
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you guys. I mean, it's pretty clear that, your success is definitely not an accident, or a misconception of some kind of, what growth hacking is. It's definitely a lot of hard work that I've learned here. And, it took a lot of, it's a lot of wisdom too. That's been a great tip for connecting with people. If you have that, Houston, when you said, if you have that slight hesitation, you've got to listen to that, right? I think a lot of times people, they don't listen to that and then second guess themselves. And that's a lot of headaches. I'm definitely going to remember that one. So 2 more questions. So second to last is, what do you think is the easiest thing people can take advantage of in business that they don't to succeed? And I think you guys kind of hit upon that a little bit already, right, in terms of giving out the value. But yeah, maybe you can.
I think that's definitely one of them, giving out the value, not holding on to that content and those secrets. But for me personally, I mean, the number one easiest thing that you can do to make business connections, just shoot people emails. Don't spam them, but send 10 emails a day to your ideal prospects that are totally personalized. And so many people are just like, I don't know why I don't have clients. I don't know why, I don't have any partners or whatever. It's like, then just do something about it. Get on LinkedIn, start messaging people, use HunterDie or find people's emails and then actually get in touch with them and start building those connections and don't just kind of sit around and wonder why you haven't made any connections like out of thin air. Growth hacking isn't magic. It's actually just like strategically, connecting and building relationships at scale. I think like a lot of our growth hacking services are all about like, how do you create relationships with people at scale, whether it's PR or B2B or partnerships. And yeah, I think that's definitely the number one growth hack is just put yourself out there, whether it's content or trying to get in touch with people. Don't ever hold back on putting yourself out there.
Wow. So I take it you agree with him, Josh, as well?
Yeah, I agree with him. And just to add on a point, I think the one thing founders miss the most, especially when starting a company, is just selling before they build. And even having a service in place, like someone to sign a service agreement before you even really know how to deliver it. That's how we started BAMF.Media. We started with a membership community that I bootstrapped off a proposal for an agency that made look like a membership. And then I ended up figuring out how to deliver the services on the back end, which became sort of fundamental growth hacks and like techniques that we use in our services today, which is hilarious because at the time, I was just desperate, but I was desperate enough to be like, okay, I'm going to start selling without anything on the back end. And it worked. And everybody tells you should do that, but nobody actually does it, right?
True.
And then as soon as you do it and it works, you're like, oh, no wonder why everybody says you should do it. And it's just getting over that fear of rejection and feeling like a pest, right? When people think about sales, they think that they're pesting people and that they're upsetting them. It's actually not true. What you're doing is you're just trying to actually provide value to people, right? And if they buy at the end of the day based on your promise, then you can actually give them the solution that they need. So I think sales is really where everything starts. And as we like to say, sales does cure all in agency land.
Wow, that's true. Well, last question, guys. The easiest one, I like to think, or maybe the hardest, you tell me. If our co-founders in our community out there wanted to help you out or connect you with one thing, what would it be and why?
Well, if they need help with marketing, they should just connect with us directly. Or if they know anyone, we would really appreciate a referral.
Yeah, I would say, referrals are always great. Another thing would be just to read our content that's out there on Product Sign. We put out several books. We have another book coming out tomorrow. It's entirely free, and you're talking about over 600 pages of tactical information to help startups grow. And so many people has asked me all the time. They're like, "Hey, what do you think about X? What do you think about Y?" And they clearly haven't read any of my books, right? So I just keep referring them back to my books.
That's awesome.
I'm like, read my material before you keep asking me questions, So that's the reason that we write it. So that's a great place for them to start. And if they feel like they have any questions after that, then reach out to us. But start there, and if they don't think they can do it all and they want to scale faster, and that's why we're here.
Yes, connect with us on LinkedIn too.
I love how Josh flipped it back to how he can provide value right at the ask. Good stuff right there.
Perfect combo.
He is that guy. Yeah, so Houston, let's talk a little bit more about the referrals, right? And maybe also referral partners of yours, right? So what's an ideal referral? You're like, man, I would love to do business with this type of client. And then what's an ideal referral partner? Like, man, these guys would be great referral partners.
Yeah, so ideal referral partner, I can think of one that I actually just talked to about 2 hours ago. They are a video production agency in San Diego. So they do a ton of creative services, but they're not necessarily a competitor, right? They're not doing the social media advertising and the growth hacking that we're doing, but they're working with the same exact kind of client that, needs those nice video assets. So that's a perfect referral partner. Someone who, works with the same type of clients in a non-competitive way. And then I would also say our perfect type of client that we would love to work with would be an e-commerce client. We love e-commerce. It's the most scalable. We can, track all the data from our ads directly to revenue and dollars that are coming in. So we're like dollars going out, dollars coming in. And then if we find something that works, we can really scale it from there and have a really long-term successful relationship with that client. Sometimes if it's a startup that has just, maybe they're a mobile app and they've raised $1 million and, they hired 10 people and they have a 100K marketing budget. That can be a really great client too. But if there's not a really solid business model or revenue model tied to that mobile app, then they're just going to be, we're going to be getting all those downloads and it's never going to be cheap enough. It's going to be like, we got to get these, cost per installs to 50 cents. And it's like, cool, we did it. But, now we have 50,000 users and you're out of money. That's can be an issue, right? But as long as we're at least positioning them in a place where they can go raise that next round, it can still be great. But I do love e-commerce. I think it's the most scalable for online marketing. And we do love also working with crowdfunding campaigns that have, good enough budget to hit their goals. We've been doing some stuff around ICOs lately, which has been very hit or miss. However, some of these are really, really cool and exciting. But all these new legal challenges around marketing ICOs has been crazy. So Unless it's like the absolute best
No ICO.
ICO you've ever seen.
It's not.
Please do not refer us any more ICOs.
Okay, no ICOs.
No ICOs
E-commerce.
unless they have like a real celebrity on board.
Okay, great.
Then I don't think so.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Thanks to Atlas. Actually, this is Atlas Workbase. They sponsor the podcast as well. So yeah, thanks guys. And we'll link all of their descriptions and content down with this blog post. See you guys later. Thank you.
Well, awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.